Okay, now let's talk about, I'm going to have you practice more of the quadratic formula. Okay, it's right here. So I look at the equation, I know that there are two answers. Okay. And then I can also see that we have the x to the second along with the x. So again, we need to use we have our 0, so we have to use our factoring boxes. And we're going to set up our GCF. And we're going to set up our t-table because all these problems have 3 terms. Okay, so the GCF, do we have a negative in front? We don't. Okay, do we have x on everything? No, we don't. And then 3 is the smallest number. So I have 1 and 3. 3 divided by 2 is a decimal, so we can forget about 2. And then that's pretty much it. Okay, so and then 3. Now we see if we can divide these. Well, you can't divide them all by 3. Okay, it won't work, so no GCF. Okay, so A, B, C. So I'm going to be taking A times C. So I take 3 times negative 4. And that's negative 12. And we need to look for a difference then that would equal 2. Okay, 1 and 12, not a difference of 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. That's not 2. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and that's 1. Another way you know if you're done is if you cross over what would be 2, okay? But if you don't like that explanation, I wouldn't do 4 because I already have 4, okay? So it's impossible, okay? I'm going to put fail. Okay, so the factoring is not going to work. It's a prime expression, so what you need to do to get the two answers out of the equation is use your quadratic formula. So plus minus, opposite of the b is 2. Now I make a big square root. Now we need to place those parentheses. So parentheses to the second minus 3 straight parentheses. Okay, b, so negative 2. And then remember, we always insert a 4 right there. No matter what the equation is, we always insert that. Then A is 3 and C is negative 4. Okay, so on the bottom we have 2 and a parentheses. And in that parentheses, I put what the A would be. In this case, it would be 3. Okay, so now I have it set up. Now it's time to get my answer. So I've got a plus minus, and I know I've got 2 here, but I don't know what's going to come after. I do know that on the bottom I can just take 2 times 3, and that's 6. Okay, so make your 2 square roots, okay? And the first thing I do is I put a minus, okay? And the first thing I do is I take negative 2 times itself. That's the first product I need to find. And then I got to take 4 times 3 times negative 4. So negative 2 times negative 2 equals 4. So I put 4 first. And then I take 4 times 3 times negative 4. I get negative 48. So I get 4 minus negative 48. So I plus that. And that's going to be 52. Now I need to find the square root of 52. So I go second. That means what number times itself is 52? Well, it doesn't really exist, so I round it. So 7.21. So I punch in 2 plus 7.21, hit equals, and then divide by 6. You got to click equals first because the adding's supposed to be done. If you enter it all in at once, it'll divide first because a calculator recognizes that, oh, division comes before addition in order of operations. And please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, but we don't want that to happen. So it's 1.53 or 1.54. You can round it up if you wish. And then I take 2 minus 7.21, click equals, and then divide by 6, and that's negative 0.86. We could round it. You can write 86 is fine, or you can write 87. Okay, so those are my 2 approximate answers. When I use this formula, I'm finding the approximate solutions. There's no way, really, at this point that we know of, and there is a way, but we don't really do it now at this level, okay? Okay, again, two answers here. And I recognize that we have x second and I have regular x, so I'm going to need to use my factor boxes, space parentheses. So GCF, we have a negative in the front, okay? I do not have x on everything. 2 is my smallest, so 1 and 2. But we can't divide them all by 2. 5 isn't divided by 2 is a decimal. But I do have this negative here that I need to deal with, so I need to put a 1 with it. So negative 1 I factor out here. That's positive 2 with x to the second. Negative 5 divided by negative 1 switches that to plus 5x, and then minus 16. Okay, so I ABC from here, and I take A times C. And I take 2 times negative 16. Now that's negative 32. So that's going to formula a difference of 5. So 1 and 32, that is not a difference of 5. 32 divided by 2 is 16. Not a difference of 5. 32 divided by 3 is a decimal. 32 divided by 4 is 8, so 4 and 8, but that's not a difference of 5. It actually went over 5. It's a 4. Nope. Nope. And no. And then I already have 8. Okay, so and by the way, so fail. Just write fail over that, so I got to use my quadratic formula. So plus or minus. So the opposite of B is going to be negative 5 square root. Okay, and then I put B, the real B, so 5, and then always a 4, and then A and C. So A is 2, C is negative 16. Okay, and then we're going to have 2, and then the A, which is 2. Okay, so now with that being done, I've got negative 5 plus or minus, and then I know that this 2 times 2 is 4, okay? But I need to figure out what my square roots are, so I put a minus. So 2 things we have to find is 5 to the second power, so 5 times 5, and then 4 times 2 times negative 16. Okay, so 5 times 5 equals 25, so I put 25. And then 4 times 2 times negative 16 is negative 128. Plus, plus. I got 153. Okay, so I need to find the square root of 153. Okay. Doesn't really have a perfect square root, so 12.36 or 37, okay? If you're off by a little bit with your rounding, don't worry about it. So negative 5 plus 12.37. Remember to click equals first, and then I divide that by 4. That's 1.84. Negative 5 minus 12.37, I click equals, and I divide by 4, and that's negative 4.34. Okay, next problem. There are 2 answers to this problem, because I know there's a second power. That means the x variable has to have 2 possible solutions that I need to look for. Okay, so there's 2 of those, so we can make our GCF and again the t-table. And GCF, okay, we do not have the negative this time. X, nope, that's empty. And then 2, so 1 and 2. Okay, we can't divide those all by 2. 3 won't divide by 2, and then we don't really need 1 if there's nothing else. So the GCF's 1, cross it out. Okay, A times C. So 2 times negative 11, okay? Negative 22, difference of 3. 1 and 22. No. 22 divided by 2 is 11. 11 minus 2 isn't 3, though. Fail. 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 And fail. Okay. All right, so I'm back to 11, so that is a failure. Fail. So, plus or minus. So opposite of B, so that's -3. Square root, parentheses to the second, -3 parentheses in a row. Okay. B is 3. And then I put a 4. A is 2. And C is -11. Okay, so 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so I have -3. And then oh, sorry, I kind of skipped it on you, Shelby. Okay. 2 and 2. It's 4. I just skipped my steps. Okay, 4. Was not doing a good job showing my work. Okay. So 3 to the second, that means 3 times 3. And then 4, 2, and -11. So 3 times 3 is 9. And 4 times 2 times -11 is -88. Plus, and that's 97. So I need to find the square root of 97. 9.85. Equals, divided by 4 is 1.71. Divided by 4 is -3.21. Okay, and then the last one I got, there's 2 answers, but here you got a problem because I've got x squared and I have x. I need to make my box, but I don't know how many terms there are because the equation is not equal to 0. So what I do is, first off, let's plus the 3x squared. And that would add with the 4x squared. And then I'd minus the 5, but the 5 can't go here because it doesn't have x squared. It can't go here because it doesn't have x. So minus 5's got to go after everything. So I drop my equals, and we just have a 0. And then 4 plus 3 is 7. So 7x to the second minus 3x minus 5. Okay, so it's 3 terms. So GCF. Negative in front, we don't have that. X squared, nope, don't have any x here. And then 3, 1 and 3. You can't divide them all by 3. And then it's pointless to use 1 unless we've already put a negative. So I don't need to do anything here. So A times C. Okay, -35, difference of 3, 1 and 35. 35 minus 1 is 3. 35 divided by 2 is a decimal. 35 divided by 3, decimal. 35 divided by 4, decimal. 35 divided by 5 is 7, okay? 7 minus 5 isn't 3, though, okay? It's 2. Decimal, and then I'm just back to 7, so I know this is a fail, so I know I'm going with my quadratic formula. Okay, so the opposite of B, plus or minus, so B3, square root, parentheses to the second, minus 3 straight parentheses, and then B is -3, and then 4, A is 7, and C is negative 5. A lot of people forget to make that negative there. That does screw up the problem if you put just 5 down. Because at the end, you'll try to find the square root, but the number will be negative, and your calculator will read it as a domain error. So 2 and 7. Okay, so I've got the 3, a plus or minus, and then I've got the 3. And then 2 times 7 is 14. So I've got negative 3 times negative 3. And I've got 4 times 7 times negative 5. And that's 9. Negative 140. Plus, and that makes 149. So I find the square root of 149. And I get 12.20, or you could put 21. Doesn't matter. Okay, so 3 plus 12.21 equals, divided by 14, 1.09. Now I take 3 minus 12.21, click equals, divide by 14, negative 0.66.